Welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to show you how to create the Cyberpunk look inside of Adobe Photoshop so you can turn this image into this. Cyberpunk 2077 is a pretty popular game right now, and I always loved this look of neon signs and the red-blue vibe in the pictures, so I thought it was the perfect time to do a tutorial like this. Let's hop right into Photoshop. So the perfect shooting scenario to get the Cyberpunk look would of course be if you have a lot of neon signs, because that's kind of the overall mood that you have in these images. I shot this image in Chinatown in Bangkok in Thailand, as you can see up there on the sign, and that's the image we're gonna use for this tutorial. So first up I'm gonna use the camera raw filter to do an overall grade. I like to first take a little bit out of the highlights because it's a bit blown out. Then I brighten the shadows all the way up because it's very dark in this image, the blacks as well. And for the whites I do it just a little bit more, so it's a little bit more of a glow. And the exposure needs to be up a little bit more as well because it's still pretty dark. Then of course do a little bit of texture and a little bit of clarity to give it a more crisp look and bring out more of the reflections in the cars, like this. Then maybe a little bit more contrast, even bit brighter exposure. Now for the temperature, you can of course do it a little bit warmer, a little bit colder, but I think it's better when it's a little bit colder. For the tint, I'm gonna drag it a little bit more on the magenta side to give it already that kind of cyberpunk look. Then we can open it and we're starting with this. So the first thing we have to do is create a gradient map. For this we have to go down here and click on this little circle / half circle and select gradient map. Now the image is black and white, but don't worry, we have to just double click this layer, and now we can select this black color and turn it to a nice cold blue. Click OK and do the same right here. Make sure the location is 100%, but this time we do more of a magenta pink vibe, like this. Click OK, OK again. And now, when we select the gradient map, we choose the blending mode, soft light. So we already have a much better look, which of course already looks a bit like Cyberpunk, but we're gonna push it a little bit further. Next we select the circle again, but this time we do hue and saturation. For the master, we drag it a little bit more on the blue side, do a little bit more saturation and just a little bit more light, but not too much, it gets washed out pretty quickly, and also we don't want to have these weird lines in the sky, so just maybe +2. Now for the reds, we can choose whether we want a more red vibe or a more pinkish vibe. I'm gonna go for the more pinkish because I think it's way cooler. A little bit more saturation, and this time a little bit more lightness because we want to affect the neon signs and really make them bright and shiny. Now next we want to take out the yellows completely because we don't have any yellows in a cyberpunk city, so we're gonna take it more to the green side, and you can see the yellow is disappearing. We can as always use a little bit more saturation and just play a little bit with the lightness, and then we can move on to the signs because the greens won't change anything significant. As you can see, the green changes more of the bluish signs. You can see the Chinatown Scala sign up here. When I drag it a little bit more to the green, we can see it gets a little bit more cyan and then green and then yellow, and when we put it more to the bluer side we get a darker blue. I'm gonna go for a light cyan blue because I think it looks very good. A little bit more saturation, and of course as always a little bit of lightness. Then we move on to the blues, and here we can change the overall mood of the picture very significant, because if we drag it to the left everything gets kind of blue, and when we drag it to the right everything gets kind of magenta. I'm gonna go for the blue side because we're gonna enhance the magenta lights more in the next slider. So when everything is nice and blue, we're gonna do a little bit more saturation, and this time we're gonna drag the lightness to the darker area to kind of darken the ugly sky because it has a few pretty ugly noise marks in it, so we're just gonna drag the lightness down and they are disappearing. The last thing we have to adjust are the magentas, and here we can really adjust the lights and reflections to the way we want. You can see it really changes down there on the wet street. You can decide for yourself how much you want. I'm gonna go for this pinkish vibe, a little bit more saturation, and the lightness option is pretty cool here because you can darken the lights all the way down and brighten them all the way up. I'm gonna drag them a little bit more down to make them pop even more. And that's already it. That's the picture. That's the final Cyberpunk look that we got. I really hope you enjoyed it and you can use it for your images. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more filmmaking, photography, Photoshop, tutorial, content, whatever it is around media. You can get it right here in this channel. If you want to watch more, here you can see my Christmas video and here you can see the video about my editing setup. Until next time, goodbye.